Welcome officially to the Manifest 10 Times Faster Challenge. By the end of this video, you're going to know what manifestation is, the key ingredient that is required for you to master in order for you to manifest 10 times quicker, and a little bit more about the challenge that we are doing at the moment, so that if you want to partake in extra fun and have extra tools and resources available to you, you can do that. So before we dive in, let's start there. I want you to take a moment to make sure that you are registered for this challenge, because when you register, you will be invited into a private Telegram community where we're having a lot of fun inside there already. If you haven't registered yet, just simply click on the link below and make sure to fill out your details and then join us inside the Telegram community. We're having so much fun playing around with different manifestation concepts inside there, and you're getting extra resources and insights into day-to-day life. And essentially, I'm a mom of two and a business owner. And so I know what it's like to have a day where I've got so many different responsibilities and balls that I'm juggling that I don't have an hour in the morning at 5 a.m. to go and do a manifestation ritual and routine, which I used to be able to do. And I loved being able to do that. But life looks different now. And yet I'm still able to manifest all of my desires. And there have been massive shifts in my life, which I'm going to get into a little bit inside this video, over the last 18 months. And I'm very excited to share that with you. Over the next 5 days, you're going to be getting a video every single day that takes you through a different part of manifestation. I believe that manifestation is so multifaceted and there is no one size fits all category. I believe that manifestation is simple, but there are complexities in our human psyche that like to make it more complicated than what it actually is. And so we're going to be unraveling all of those complexities so that I can show you a roadmap that will really deeply align with your own unique soul codes. If we haven't yet met, I am Kylie. I'm the founder of That Manifestation Mama, and I've studied over 12 different modalities that I now alchemize all together to bring to you in a very unique way and an experience that takes very complex topics like human design and the universal laws, and I bring them to you in a very simplified way that is easy to understand and implement from this very moment. I have been able to manifest a life already that has far surpassed what I ever had on my vision board. And I'm really excited to see where the next evolution takes me. We're in a really interesting time at the moment, and perhaps you have already felt the shifts and you can see it. And maybe you are somebody that is naturally intrigued by human design and astrology. And if that is you, you may know that we're going through a massive paradigm shift at the moment. And it started in 2020 and it's going to be continuing to shift until 2027. I don't need to remind anybody that might be listening to this what happened from 2020. And to know now that we're in that last phase before 2027 arrives, I know that we're in a very sacred space of time, especially when it comes to our manifestations. And already energetically, this year is starting to feel different. And I'm very excited to see what's going to come of this year. Although I do suspect that this year is going to bring about quite a few challenges. And this is something that you'll learn throughout this week, is that when you live a life in accordance to manifestation principles and spiritual concepts, and even in your human design experiment, life is never void of challenge. Life is never void of struggle. It's how we navigate the struggle and the challenge that actually prepares us to becoming an energetic container in order for us to have and hold our desires on an expanded level. But life is not void of challenge or struggle. And so if you believe that living a life in accordance to manifestation principles means that you're going to have rainbows and unicorns only in your front yard, I want to hold you with love in this moment and say, life will never be void of challenge. You need friction in order to grow and evolve. And it's how we get to navigate those challenges that are really going to help us also manifest 10 times quicker. And so my intention behind this challenge is to really equip you with the tools that no matter what is happening in your life, no matter what challenge is being thrown your way, you are able to navigate it because you have self-trust. You know how to lead yourself with radical responsibility, and you're showing up for yourself in ways that the universe will see the frequency and meet you at the frequency and have no choice but to deliver your desires to you because you become so magnetic along the way. I've learned through human design that there is no such a chart, like there's no chart, there's no life that will ever be void of challenge or struggle. It's part of our journey. It's when we stay stuck in the challenge or stay stuck in the struggle, that's when we endure suffering. And no human being is meant to endure suffering. Challenge and struggle, yes, but suffering, no. And so I know that over the last few years, I have really been stretched and met myself at so many different edges and have had moments where I've allowed myself to experience suffering because I stayed stuck in the struggle for so long. And I was a girl who has been in the manifestation community since building a company since 2019, but far, far longer than that, because I discovered manifestation when I was around 16 years of age. And I'm currently about to turn 36. So I've been practicing manifestation principles for 20 years. And yet I found myself over the last 18 months kind of sitting back going, I know how to manifest. I know about mindset. I know about how thoughts work. I know about the shadow. I know about inner child. I know about all of these things. And yet, why is it that I'm sitting back watching and witnessing other people seemingly manifest their desires so easily and effortlessly? And yet here I am doing all of the work and feeling so frustrated and resentful that my desires are not coming to me. I've had to navigate challenges of deep jealousy, of deep rage, of feeling so empty because in the last 3 years, we're coming up to 4. I've had 2 back-to-back pregnancies, raising 2 under 2, while building a business in a foreign country with no extra family support. And for a large part of that, I didn't have any childcare support. And at the time of this recording, I've overcome so many challenges and I'm so proud of where I am today. And I know that this is just the beginning. So the purpose of this challenge is to really show you where you might be getting stuck along the journey, because I know how deeply frustrating and disenchanting the manifestation process can be when you're feeling like you're doing everything. You're saying the affirmations, you're doing the journaling, you're doing the hypnosis, you're doing the shadow work, yet nothing seems to really be moving the needle forward. And the purpose of this challenge is to show you all the different facets that will help add up to you getting your desires 10 times faster. So let's start with my dark night of the soul, which has happened over the last 18 months. And it really started getting really dark exactly 12 months ago. Last year, this time, I entered 2025 with the hopes and desires and dreams that everybody has when it's like a new year, new me kind of feeling. Although I don't buy into that concept anymore, but you still have this hope that a new year will bring about fresh energy. And I just come to the end of running a mastermind that I loved that space and I gave it my all. And I was trying to build up this incredible space that would have every tool available to every single person. And I wanted to be and lead as the example of how I wanted the industry to be. And in the making of the space, I turned into somebody that I had started despising and wanted to be the change that I wanted to stand against. And there were parts of that journey where I felt deeply embarrassed and deeply ashamed. And I've had to do a lot of forgiveness work to really come out of that space and see things from a different perspective and also communicate with people as well, because I believe that you have to really face things head on when they do come to light instead of avoiding. And essentially, once I started to really lead myself through those challenging times, things started to change for me on a very drastic, quick level, but not in a way that I expected. When I first started my company, it was originally known as Mind Your Hero. And I had so many dreams and so many visions for how this company, this manifestation company, was going to go global. I would be speaking on stages, being interviewed on Oprah Winfrey's podcast. I had all of those visions and all of those ideals and dreams when I first started this company. And because I think I held such a big vision in the very beginning, I had what I call beginner's luck because I was so naive to what the entrepreneurial journey I think would have in store for me. I was able to hit success really, really quickly. And so in my first year of being a full-time entrepreneur during the pandemic, during 2020, I was able to have a seven-figure year in Rand terms. And it was an incredibly proud milestone in my life and surpassed every expectation I ever had. And so I really learned that the work of manifestation works. It really does. And I will die on the hill that I preach this upon. Manifestation is so real. But then there became a time where I then started to fall into entitlement. And we're going to talk a lot about entitlement and martyrdom throughout this challenge, because I believe that when we experience either of those energies, we're in what I call princess energy. And I'm going to dive into what princess and queen energy is at the end of this video. And you will be able to start to see resemblances or resonate with certain points of where you might be in each of those energies, because you can be in some of the princess energy and queen energy all at the same time, depending on which lens you're looking at different areas of your life through. To rewind back to last year, because I'd had all of those visions, I deeply know, and still to this day know in the soul of my being, I'm meant and destined to be a millionaire for whatever reason. And I always thought that that was going to be through the vehicle of Mind Your Hero getting me to that point. And last year, things had really started to take a scary turn where I had no monthly recurring revenue, well, enough monthly recurring revenue coming in to cover my expenses. And eventually, I was going down a downhill path to the point that I was having anxiety attacks. I couldn't sleep, I couldn't breathe because my expenses were outweighing what was coming into my business. And I knew things needed to change. But I had this inside of me, this wolf, because I believe that we all have the two wolves inside of us, and the wolf that you feed is the one that wins. But I had this wolf inside of me going, but you can out manifest the situation. You can create a different reality. And I am so genuinely grateful to myself for believing in myself that much that I could out manifest the situation. But this is where ego was tripping me up. I thought that it had to be done a specific way. And what the universe was really guiding me into learning is that sometimes when you have a vision for your manifestations, it's not going to come in the way that you expect it to come. When we attach ourselves to how things are going to manifest, that is when we're actually operating from our shadow, from our ego, because the shadow and the ego likes to believe that they have control. But the truth is that we have no control over what happens to us. We only have control over how we react to the things that I believe all happen for us. And so when I started to deconstruct the narrative of, well, this is the only way I can get to having the $1 million version of myself, things started to crumble. And by April last year, my husband had a very brutally honest conversation with myself. And I'm so grateful to him because we actually do shadow work with each other. And I've learned how to deeply sit in that discomfort of receiving feedback from a loving place, but from a place that is allowing me to also expand. We hold each other honest and accountable to the desires that we have for our lives. And so after we had one of our brutally honest conversations, I realized what I needed to do. And the things that I needed to do was to get rid of all of my subscriptions and essentially start over. And I'd been saying for the longest time, I'm burning it all down. I'm burning it all down. And I had burnt down a lot of things. I had burnt down offers, and I'd burnt down certain offerings that I had in my business, but I hadn't truthfully gone into the nitty gritties of letting go of it all, letting go of everything that I was holding onto, because I believed it was the only possible way for me to manifest my desired outcome. So this looked like getting rid of all of my programs, the platforms it was hosted on, the website. And I still love the name Mind You Here. It holds such a special place in my heart. But I'd started to do a lot of deep embodiment work around feminine and masculine energetics, and definitely understand feminine energetics so much more. And the word hero has a very masculine energy, even though it has the word her in it. And so the name started to not resonate with everything anymore as well. And I needed to do a massive purge. And I believe that this is one of the biggest steps in the manifestation journey, is that when you are calling in something new, you have to make space for it. And space is not just about the physical clutter we create, it's about the mental, the emotional, the spiritual, all of the different clutter that we keep. And I was holding onto this name and this idea of how I thought things had to be in order for me to yield my vision. But it needed to crumble so that everything else could fall into place. And this is where the universe started giving me breadcrumbs. So, April last year, I'd gone back to South Africa to visit family and realized just how many energy leaks I had open. I still had bank accounts open in South Africa. I still hadn't really shut everything down. And I realized that I was living with one foot in my past life and one foot in my future, but I was never fully actually allowing myself to go all in on my future. And so I had to close down things like the bank accounts. And I'm still in the process of doing certain things with regards to all of the paperwork and the admin that comes with everything. But it's just really interesting that the moment I started closing down those energetic leaks, I started to feel clearer inside myself. Now, being a mom, and at this point last year, I was still a mom to two under two. And having the chaos of having two under two and not having any space to think, it felt like I could never go into creation mode of thinking about what I could be doing, because I always had noise around me. I always had a baby attached to me, most of the time attached to my boob, because I'm still breastfeeding to this day. But I never had mental clarity or space to make decisions, to co-create with the universe. And manifestation is a co-creation exercise. Manifestation is about how we can use seeds of inspiration and wisdom and then take action on that in order to go forward. And this is where the masculine and feminine energetics of manifestation come in. We need to be able to be in our masculine to do things, but we equally need to allow ourselves to be in receptive energy, which is the feminine energy, to receive ideas, to receive the whispers of our soul, to understand the future version of us whispering and guiding us and leading us along the way every single day. But when you don't have that space, again, nothing new can come in. And so you kind of short circuit yourself by doing the same things every single day. And then we go into the spiral of thinking, well, maybe if I do more, if I output more energy by doing the same thing, then it will yield a different result. And that for me looked like, well, I'm just going to post more content and I'm just going to tell myself more and I'm just going to do this. But I wasn't doing it from a different version of myself. I was still doing it from the same version of myself. And then because I wasn't getting results, I had started building up resentment because I wasn't being met for my own resources and needs that I needed in order to feel fulfilled. And so when we look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the first thing is on that Maslow's hierarchy of needs are our basic needs. We all need shelter, food, water, electricity, things like that. And a lot of those basic needs get to be met with financial resources. And this is why so many people walk around with dysregulated nervous systems and anxious minds, because their basic needs of being financially resourced are not met. And until I could figure that part out of the puzzle, the rest couldn't fall into place. And this was the irony, and maybe you can relate, where my life last year was actually pretty perfect in so many senses of the word. I have two beautiful children, and for the longest time, that was my greatest manifestation that I was wanting to achieve. And here I was, being able to look after them every single day with the freedom to be able to do so. And I am supported financially because my husband is in a job that was able to support us. And yes, well, there were maybe cutbacks and no luxuries and all of those things. It's not like I was financially destitute. And so my financial needs were being met in a different way. And that's also where I had to learn how to be in receptive energy in order to receive, because I've always been the woman that wants to equally contribute to a marriage, to a family, to all of these different things. And for me, it's an important value that I've always had. But the universe, again, wanted to really challenge me and test me and take me to my limits of what it means to receive. Because in manifestation, you're going to need to learn how to receive. If you cannot receive somebody throwing a compliment your way, opening a door for you, how do you expect that the universe can give you the $1,000,000 if you can't even receive the help when it is needed the most to be received? And so I've learned a lot about how different manifestation strategies are born from where you are, depending on which stage of life you're in, which needs are being met in terms of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And I've kind of brought this all together for this challenge because I know how deeply disenchanting it can be when it feels like, but I'm doing so much and I'm not receiving anything, because that was me last year. I was doing so much. I was pouring my heart out onto the internet. I was doing free challenges like this at the time. There was so much that I was doing, and yet I just wasn't being fulfilled in the same way. And when I look back, the leaks are so clear. If I look at it from a bird's eye perspective, I can see exactly why I wasn't getting those results. But when you're in it, and when it feels like you're at the precipice of change and you're standing maybe on the sand on a beachfront and there's this wave after wave crashing down on you, it can feel really challenging. And it can feel like you just don't have a moment to come up for a breath of air. It can feel like the world is caving in on you. And it's not to say that your life is bad either, because there is so much to be grateful for. There's so much beauty, and it's not that you're suffering in any way, but there's elements of it that are super challenging. And maybe you're listening to this and you have a health condition that is consuming all of you right now. Maybe you're listening to this and it's a relationship thing. Maybe you're listening to it and it's a financial thing. Whatever it is, I know that there's this one area that if you focus in on that area, it feels like doom and gloom, and that's the only thing that you can be consumed with. But I also want you to notice and bear witness to the fact that there are other areas in your life that you once used to pray for. And that is one of the things that started helping me get out of that cycle of anxiety, of darkness, and of perpetual gloom, was to start to really go back into gratitude. Now, the way I practice gratitude is in 3 different ways. And when you're in a dark night of the soul and you feel like there's no hope and you feel like you're just in a tunnel of blackness, and again, it's not like everything is bad, but it just feels heavy and it feels like you can't breathe and it feels like the air that you're breathing is heavy and thick. And maybe you're not in a dark night of a soul. Maybe you're not in that phase of being in the void, but maybe you're still looking for solutions to how you can get to your dream life, because what you've been trying hasn't worked to its full potential yet. If you're in this challenge, there's still more for you to unlock. And I do believe that we have layers and layers and layers and layers and layers to unlock within ourselves. And we're always on this journey. But regardless of where you're at, these are things that have really helped me get back into the practice of manifestation and to see the light at the end of the tunnel. The first thing was to ask myself on a continuous basis, dear universe, show me all the possibilities that exist for me right now. I've always been a person that has believed and practiced and preached that your current situation or your current set of circumstances do not determine your future or where you're going. But it's very easy to look at your current situation and go, well, I've got this much in my bank account. I have this expense coming up. I've got these things to do. I don't know how it's going to get done. Therefore, this is what this means about me. And manifestation, and this is where I believe it vastly differs from goal setting, is going, this is my set of circumstances, but I'm so delusional and I know that anything is possible, that I can get to this result, even though right now this is my current situation. And so asking the question, dear universe, show me all the possibilities that are available to me right now, opens up your mind to different ways of thinking. And that is a creative process, and that is the manifestation process. And so this is again where that feminine energy side of learning how to receive really needs to be mastered so that you can trust the whispers that come in. I was in a very fortunate position last year where we had just gone to South Africa. I'd started closing off everything. I'd felt really burnt out at this point. And I'd even said to my husband, I just need a break. I need time and space to think about where I'm going next, because if I can just have a week off of life, I know that it will come to me. I actually didn't even say a week back then. I said, I just need time off. And I had no idea what that length of time would be. I just felt like I needed a break because I had been working consistently, and I've always loved doing this work. And I'd even found myself working the day after Jordan was born in the hospital. And, you know, for me, this is such a passion. But when your passion isn't giving you the returns of what you're putting out there, it can feel really disenchanting, and it can feel like a slug because you're not being resourced to the level that you desire or need to be resourced to. And so I had felt burnt out because there was no filling up of my own cup. And I'd said, I just need a break. And so very fortunately, I'd had some retirement and savings and all of those different things that was going to start coming through that allowed me the chance to have a break. Now, here's irony. I haven't even received those funds yet, and I didn't even need them at the end of the day. So they get to keep on going. But because I had that mental safety net, I came back to Dublin in May last year and I took a week off of life. And what that looked like was I stripped down all of the things that I had to do to the bare necessities. So I knew that I obviously had responsibilities around taking my kid to school, and it was his first week of school. I had the responsibility of making sure the baby was always fed and well dressed. You know, I've got those responsibilities, your daily things, especially as a mom, that you have to do. I still had some clients that I needed to check in on, but I didn't need to market myself. I didn't need to do anything. And I decided to take people behind the scenes, and not from a place of I have to be doing this, but from a place of I desire to be showing people what it's like to be in this rut, to be in this hole, to be considering so many different things when you just don't know which way is up. And so those are the things, the bare minimum that I had to do that would obviously be spaced throughout the day. But I removed myself from everything that I thought I had to be doing. And I allowed myself to really just enjoy life. I'm a generator, and we'll be getting into human design in this challenge. And for me, being a generator means that you have to have life force energy running through you. You have to have satisfaction. You have to do the things that make you feel lit up and find the joy. And so I did that. I went to the beach. I had coffee. I met up with groups of women in women's circles, mothering circles. I did so many different things, went on adventures, spent the day at the beach, had no rush. The only thing that I needed to do was fetch my son from school every day. And that was the only time constraint that I had. But everything else, when I was sitting down and enjoying myself, I wasn't going, oh, I need to go back and get to this and do this. I just allowed myself to be for a week. And by Thursday, I'd started this on the Monday. By the Thursday, I was like, okay, I'm bored now, but not in a bad way. It was like, this has been lovely. My soul has needed this reset, but I'm ready to get back to doing what I love to do. Now, during this period of time, I'd been asking the question, dear universe, show me all the possibilities that exist to me right now, because I couldn't see the future. I didn't know what the future would hold, but I knew that I needed to activate my mind to come up with different creative solutions for me. And so I started contemplating going back into interior architecture. I contemplated in starting up a photography company again. I contemplated becoming a VA. I'd even looked at applying for jobs just so that I could get out of that state of anxiety to have my own financial needs met. And what slowly but surely started to happen was the universe brought in different things into my pathway, which I believe were the breadcrumbs for me to respond to. As a generator, I'm here to respond to things. And we'll get more into, again, human design in the later part of the conversation. But for me, I know that my strategy in human design is to respond to what the universe is bringing to me. And so because interior architecture was one of the things that I was contemplating, I'll still never forget, we were doing one of the days that week on the beach. It was a Friday, actually. And because it was a Friday, I had no time constraints. I had actually phoned Lloyd, my husband, and said to him, well, on your way home from work, come down to the beach. Let's watch the sunset together, and we can get dinner on the way back home or whatever. And then that way I didn't have to walk home, which was also really lovely. And so when we were on the beach, one of the other dads from school, his dad is an architect and has an architecture firm, and he works at an ad hoc basis for his dad as he's also an architect. And there my husband was going, hey, here's your sign. And my whole body went, Hoo! And in that moment, I knew that that was absolutely not a pathway I could even consider. Everything shut down. And this is where I really started to understand on an even deeper level just how much human design had given me. I was able to notice my body-based cues, where there were red flags. And so often, I think that we believe that the signs of the universe are always going to show us exactly what we need to be doing, but it's not true. the universe will bring things into our awareness for us to discern what is for and what is not for us. And so when I was starting to feel this contraction, I knew that it was not from me. And it wasn't a temporary state of resistance, because we will always have temporary resistance to go through. Right now, I'm looking at inviting some incredibly powerful, big guests onto my podcast. And every time I look at their profile photo and look at them, I'm like, I get those butterflies. I feel resistance. I'm like, this is scary. That is not the resistance I'm speaking about. That is just fear. And you will make up all the excuses in the world as to why it couldn't be done. Versus real resistance is when your whole body shuts down and you know you could do it, but it doesn't feel right. It just feels like this creeping up your spine, over your shoulders, down your body. It doesn't feel right. That is a resistance that you need to learn how to trust. And I trusted that. And I'm so grateful that I did trust that. And slowly but surely, I just kept following the breadcrumbs. And so here we are today, and I've fully gone into being that manifestation mama, and I'm having so much fun along the journey. And so often people will say, but you're not really doing anything that's vastly different. But how I view myself and how I view myself in this company versus Mind Your Hero are two very different things. When I was in the end stages of Mind Your Hero, I'd kind of taken on more of a role of being a business coach, and I had seen myself as a business coach. And my actions and behaviors were showing up as that business coach. But I was also showing up in a way of how I expected that I should be. And so I started to really not enjoy the content I was producing or who I was being. And I was starting to be inauthentic to my truth and to my soul. And that is why I had so much shame and guilt that I was carrying around. Now, what happens is that when we have shame and guilt, that becomes a repressed emotion that lives in our aura. And I want you to view your aura as this beautiful, sparkly, magnetic force field that lives around you. And the moment we have shame and guilt and embarrassment and all of these things, the ways we should be and the ways that we think we're not lovable and not enough, they create these almost like little dark spots. This is how I view and visualize energy to work. And when you're carrying those dark spots around you, it starts to weigh down on your aura. And so your aura starts to shrink. And it's not to say that it's not there, it's just shrinking in size because you're not expressing your magnetism as much. Now, the more you repress it and the more you ignore it, the more it's going to try and attract your attention. And so that little dark spot grows and it grows and it grows. And eventually it's the dark spots that are attracting in the people that trigger you, the situations that trigger you, so that you can be illuminated to what is in your aura and what you're carrying around with you on a continuous basis that you will at some point have to face and challenge. And so a lot of the work that I've done for years now is shadow work. But last year I got brutal with my shadow work. And I asked what I was gaining from staying stuck in the struggle or being perceived as a person who rarely tries. And I realized that there are points in your life that will be very valid reasons as to why you might be taking your foot off the pedal in your career, for example. And so what I learned was that having 2 under 2 is, yes, a very valid, hard experience. But when I chose to stay stuck in the struggle and the story of that struggle, that is when I experienced suffering. That is when I experienced delayed struggle. And I was enjoying it on a subconscious level. This is the reason. When I was phoning my mom or when I was speaking to other people, I enjoyed them going, I don't know how you're doing it all. Oh, you're amazing for trying, and there was that part of me that was getting the reverence and the celebration for being the woman that tried and not the woman that succeeded. Because it's almost as though we need to have points of resonance with others by staying stuck in our struggle. And I've had conversations recently with a lot of moms where it's almost as though if you had to show up at pickup as this well put together woman, yet you're a mom, then all of a sudden it looks like you're not being a good mom if you're well put together, because it's almost as though you have to be part of the hot bun mess club in order to be perceived as being a good mom. But this challenge is going to really challenge those standards that you've set for your life. I believe that we can all raise the standards and hold ourselves with grace and be real and vulnerable and authentic but still continuing to raise the standards for our lives, because that's what it's going to take to manifest your dreams. I've always said that manifestation is simple, but it's not easy. Because if it were easy, everybody would be living their dream life, right? Everybody would just say their affirmations in the morning, visualize their goals, and voila, the desires would land. But manifestation is a continuous practice of becoming the predominant frequency that can attract your desires. And this is a big part of the message that I have to share with you this week. And I really want to dissect what predominant frequency means. So we've spoken already a little bit about the aura field that you carry around with you in life. Now, I want you to visualize that magnetic aura field as a magnet, and it's always attracting things into it. It's not repelling, it's just attracting like for like. So where there's magical, sparkly energy, it's attracting more magical, sparkly energy. Where there's dark and heavy energy, it's attracting more dark and heavy energy. And so that is what we call in human design the magnetic monopole. It is mono, meaning there is only one pole, and it's an attracting pole. It's attracting everything to you in life. And when it's attracting everything to you, you get to realize that you're attracting what you predominantly hold in your aura. So if you're predominantly holding gratefulness, overflow, abundance, all of these things, you're going to be getting more of that. If you're predominantly holding guilt, shame, not enoughness, you're going to be getting more of that. Now, here's the irony. That attraction field is governed by your subconscious mind. Your conscious mind only knows about 5% of what is actually happening in our reality. And the subconscious is aware of the 95%. Right now, your heart is beating in your body, pumping blood flow around you. You're breathing automatically. I'm moving my hands automatically, but I'm not telling my heart, please beat, or breathe. Okay, circulate. It's all happening for us. And so we really don't understand the depths of everything that is happening inside our subconscious minds. And it's our subconscious mind that is creating this auric field around us of allowing things to be attracted to us. And so this is where we can really start to look at the mirror effect and see that our external reality is a direct reflection of what is happening internally within us. And so what I mean by an auric field and your predominant frequency is that we need to become aware of what is mostly in that auric field, because whatever is mostly in that auric field is what is going to be attracted into your life. Now, when you have been working on your predominant frequency, you can have days where you have a shitty day and you feel sad, and that's a temporary state of emotion. But if you transmute it, it doesn't affect your overall predominant frequency. So you can have moments of sadness, you can have moments of anger, you can move through those. And if you learn the art of mastering and transmuting those emotions, then that is what adds up in your predominant frequency once again and starts to attract everything that you desire into your life. Now, I want you to think of that auric field as well, because part of that is what I believe divine timing really is. Now, if you had to look at somebody that wanted to become a surgeon, they have a long journey ahead of them of studying. I don't care how much manifesting you do in terms of visualizing and wishful thinking and all of those things. And if you are into TikTok, you've probably seen all the manifestation hacks of sleep with multifaceted under your pillow. You can do all of those things. But if you want to become a surgeon, there are specific requirements that you are going to have to go through in order to become educated enough to become a surgeon. You're going to have to go through tests in order for your knowledge to be at a level where you know everything about the human body so that you can go down that career pathway. Now, I want you to see this auric field like this. When you decide you want to become a doctor and you get accepted, here is your auric field for being a doctor. You're going to go through your first year. It's going to get a little bit bigger. You know a little bit more. You understand everything, but you're still not going to be able to waltz into a surgery and be the head surgeon on that surgeon. You're going to have to go to second year, third year, fourth year. And so this is what it means to become the energetic container that can hold your desires. Let's look at this in terms of abundance and wealth and love and all of those things too. To become an energetic container that can hold the desire that you want, you're going to need to expand to holding that predominant frequency of whatever it is that you desire. That's what it means to be the energetic container that can hold your desire. And so if you are somebody that wants to have a multi-million-dollar empire and write a book and speak on stages, and yes, I'm speaking about myself here, but you're going to have to grow to become that energetic container. How do you become that? Well, the universe is going to put you through a series of challenges, tests, to help you become that energetic container that can hold it. And so that is what divine timing is. It's making sure that you are the energetic container that can hold it all. Now, in some instances, I'm not talking just about becoming a surgical doctor here. In some instances, if you wanted to, for example, write a book and become a published author and have a best-selling author, that could happen quite quickly. That could happen quite quickly. If you are the energetic container that can hold the responsibility of receiving 1 million people's feedback and reviews and all of those things, you might already be at the energetic size. But this is why so often we don't receive our desires, because if you were to get the body of your dreams, the money in your bank account, all of those things right now, would you be able to hold it? And we've seen this time and time again throughout history, where people have won the lottery and within 2 years have spent all of that money because they did not know how to hold it. And this is what the universe is helping you do. It's helping you expand to hold it all. And this is when you do sometimes feel like you have a quantum leap, because you'll do all of these little steps of action on a continuous basis. And one day you'll wake up and you'll be like, oh, I've already got my desire. And I didn't even realize it because it was made so normal in my life by me delusionally thinking about who I'm becoming and then showing up as her every single day. And so that's what it means to be the energetic container. Now, this is the irony with manifestation, and where so many people go wrong is by wanting the desire, they show the predominant frequency that they don't yet have the desire. And so the frequency then is in a state of lack. And this is actually the work of manifestation that you're going to be learning about this week. The work of manifestation is to course correct that wanting, which is signaling at a subconscious level lack, into being abundance, to course correct continuously to be in the frequency of what it is that you actually desire. That is what we're going to be working on. So this is the single ingredient you need to master in order to get your desires 10 times faster. It's going from princess energy to queen energy. And here is a list of the differences between princess energy and queen energy. The princess believes that everything happens to her. The queen knows that everything happens for her. And through timeline techniques, this is where I get to reframe everything in the past for my clients so that they can see just how much those tests and challenges have been the preparation to be the energetic container that will hold their desires. The princess loves to blame and complain about everything, whereas the queen takes radical responsibility. And sometimes you don't even see the details of what we blame and complain about. So if traffic has been a nightmare lately and it does feel like it's something out of your control, the princess goes, well, this is why I'm late. And whereas the queen goes, I deeply accept, because acceptance is a huge part of this. The moment we accept things, we move into a different frequency. And the queen goes, I accept that traffic is really bad right now. I have choices that I now get to make because I'm aware that traffic is really bad. I can either choose to get there late, or I can choose to get there earlier and do X, Y, and Z and maybe make a fun adventure out of that. So that's the slight tweaks that we are going to be making. The princess lives in shame cycles. And this looks like trying to use willpower on a continuous basis and shaming yourself into change. How often have you perhaps started a new year and gone, this is the year that I'm going to get to be the healthiest version of myself. And come the 14th of January, because most New Year's resolutions last for 14 days, you're going, oh, you're such an idiot. Why did you have to eat the chocolate? You should know better. Da, 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 da. Has that ever worked for you? Because I know in my experience and having worked with the thousands of people that I have, that never works for anybody. And so we love ourselves into change. We show ourselves compassion and raise our standards. And this is where you move into knowing how to empower yourself, not shame yourself. And it's all through the art of knowing how to deeply love and appreciate yourself. The princess waits for her savior. This is a cycle that I was stuck in for a very long time, specifically when it came to me wanting to manifest a relationship. I was always the girl waiting for a guy to come down and save her. But I realized that I had to first be the version of myself that I would want to date or marry and change myself first to be the frequency that would attract my soulmate into my life. It's not about waiting for a savior, but rather about being the queen who trusts herself no matter what and is her own savior. The next thing is that the princess stays stuck in the challenge and the struggle because she gains something extra from it. And this is where we look into secondary gains. Even something as simple as running. I used to always be injured, and I realized that I always used to be injured because I had the subconscious kick out of gaining attention for always having something wrong with me. And I enjoyed and thrived off of that pity and that attention. And it's really interesting to look into attention because attention is one of our basic needs, actually. And it stems from us being a baby. When we're a baby, we gain our parents' attention when we're hungry, when we're cold, when we need a nappy change, in order to have our basic needs met, because a baby can't fend for itself. And so attention is something that we have been programmed to receive from another in order for us to get our basic needs met. It's a survival mechanism. But when we become adults, we don't realize that we can leave the attention seeking behind. And so I have learned how I attention seek in every area of my way. And it's so sneaky. And I still fall into cycles of attention seeking. And when you can really call yourself out on that, you're going to move out of princess energy, where you understand that challenge is part of your evolution, but you find yourself enjoying the discomfort and the edge of being in the challenge. And when you can find joy and meet yourself there in that challenge, that's when everything in your life drastically starts to change. The princess waits for evidence before taking action. So many people walk around going, if I just believed in myself first, then I would be able to go and ask to be on a podcast or write the book or whatever it is. But actually, the queen knows that the only way clarity comes is through taking action. Thinking creates overthinking. Action creates clarity. And when I look at how I first started this company, which was to be a journal company, I had no idea how to publish a journal. I had no idea what it took to print a book or how to design one or any of those things. But every day I took action. And with every step of action I took, the next few steps unfolded. I had no idea how printing worked. But once I learned how printing worked, I learned how binding worked. And then I knew I needed to get an ISBN. It was not that I knew all of those steps at the beginning of the journey. I only knew the first step. So where can you take the first step today, even though you have no idea how the pathway will start unfolding for you? The princess is stifled by perfection, whereas the queen knows that failure is part of her becoming the energetic container, and it is part of the feedback she requires to grow and evolve. Now, this is something and an edge that I've been contemplating for the past month, which is, where does perfection end and standards begin? Because part of me being in my entitled energy was that I thought that I was doing all of my everything that I could, but I had also dropped my standards in how I was showing up because I thought it was okay. Now, how this looked was, I've been in countless programs in many different coaching containers. And I think that what made mine unique in the very beginning days of my business was how I presented my programs, the presentations I had, the different audio guides that would go with things. And somewhere along the line, I had gone into other coaching programs where they didn't do those things. And I dropped my own standards because it was okay for them. Therefore, it was okay for me. But at a subconscious level, that goes against my own values. And I'm not saying that the people that didn't have the presentations and the way I did things are wrong. They have great containers and they're wildly wealthy and they do incredible things in the world. So it's not about shaming or blaming anybody here. It's just about going, where are my standards dropping? And so this is where you need to practice the art of slowing down to speed up, and then do what you do want to do with so much intention that you do it to your standards, but you don't have to do it perfectly. And there's that slight edge that you get to work on. So perfection is where you get stuck in paralysis and you wait until everything is perfect and the scenario around is perfect. Whereas doing things with high standards, but knowing that there's probably going to be lessons along the way that you're then going to take that feedback from and implement it and learn from, is a way that you'll raise your standards, hold yourself with grace, but not fall into perfection. So it's a very fine line and it is nuanced, but it does exist there. And the last one, which is a big one, is that the princess is constantly doing in order to prove herself. And yes, manifestation takes a lot of inspired action, and you're going to need to do things that you've never thought you would be doing before, but you do anyway. But it's not about hustling or doing more of the thing that is not driving the needle forward. The queen knows how to ask for help and receive help. Something I've been doing recently that's also really allowed me to jump forward and move the needle forward is approaching everything from a beginner's mindset and not being afraid to ask the questions. And this is again where ego comes into the play here. In the past, I would have been going, well, I'm a person that's been in business for this amount of time, and so I should know these things. So I'm not going to ask a question that would make me look stupid because my ego is too fragile to receive that. And essentially, what's happened recently is with me doing all the paperwork and ceasing tax residency and all of those different things, there are questions that I'm asking that before I would have been too scared to ask because I would have thought that it would make me feel stupid or be seen to be stupid. But actually, when you're brave enough to ask the questions that will give you the answers that you need, that is not stupidity. That is bravery. That is courage. And so it's to know that when you're open to asking and receiving help, and you're doing it from a place of there is no ego here, this is a genuine need for me to know, things are going to radically shift for you because the ego is not getting in the way of, but I should be smarter, or I should be further along, or I should be doing this. And that is essentially what I believe vulnerability to be, is to put aside the ego that thinks that they should be further along on their journey, that thinks that they should know more, that thinks that they should be better at this, and going, hey, I can learn something here. Hey, I don't know everything, and maybe you have a different way of expressing it. And so I ask you for the rest of this challenge to constantly challenge your ego of, yes, you know about manifestation. Yes, you know about maybe neuroscience or all of these things, but maybe there's something in here that you don't know you're hearing in a different way that lands on a deeper level. And it will only land on that deeper level when you allow it to. And that is the art of feminine energy. That is the art of receiving. I hope that you've enjoyed part 1 of 5. Let me know in the comments or inside the Telegram group what your favorite takeaway was. And if you're inside the Telegram group, I'll be giving you extra practices to do today to really implement this information so that you can instantly start to see results. I'll see you tomorrow for day 2, where we'll be going over the quad manifestation formula, the formula that will help you manifest anything that you desire.